Hello everyone and welcome to the Education Skills Policy Development Committee on Wednesday the 15th of December. So can we start with apologies for absence, please?
Yeah, I've had apologies from Councillor Des Thomas, Chair.
Thank you. I'm not sure, I think it is Councillor Cyril Anderson. I think I saw Cyril. Cyril, are you here?
Yeah, I'm here, Mike.
Oh, there we are. We've asked Cyril to come along this evening as the chair of his PDC because there's a little bit of crossover. We thought it would add a bit of value for him to come along. And I think we've had apologies from Councillor June Burton Shaw as well, who was also invited along as a guest. So the next thing on the agenda is disclosures of personal and prejudicial interest. Do we have any? No. And then we move on to the minutes of the last meeting, which have disappeared off my screen temporarily. And can we go through the minutes page by page, please? Sorry, just clicking away here. Page 1, page 2, page 3, and page 4. Are we content for those minutes to be signed as a true record?
Absolutely, yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, thank you, Lyndon. Seconded?
Yes, I second that.
Lovely, thank you very much. So now we move on to agenda item number 4, and it's a positional statement for vocational education in Swansea. Is Dave Bowden going to take the lead with this?
Yes, I'll take the
Lovely,
lead
thank you, Dave.
with this. No problem. Good afternoon, everybody. I see in the minutes that you have the positional statement, the report that has been sent out. So what I want to aim to do this afternoon is just to give an overview of where we are within our schools, colleges and training providers in terms of vocational education. And the good news is really that there's a lot happening within the schools. And within the colleges, there are some very strong relationships that have been formed between our 14 to 16 schools, our 14 to 18 schools, our college, Gower College within Swansea, our neighbouring college and work-based learning providers such as Inspire Training. So there's lots going on. We've got strong relationships. There's some good initiatives happening from Welsh Government and locally as well, which I'll draw your attention to during this presentation. I don't have a PowerPoint, but at one point I'll just share the screen just so I can flag up something that's going on within Gower College, if that's okay. So firstly, just to outline to everyone that actually in terms of nationally statutory requirements, the Learning and Skills Measure in 2009 in Wales was put in place to ensure that all our schools are offering at age 14 at least 3 vocational options. So that's there. And then at post 16, at least 5 vocational options. Now, many of our schools and the college do a lot more than that, but that's the minimum requirements that Welsh Government set out for us. So pleased to say Swansea meets those requirements, and we've got a big range of vocational choices that schools have opted into, ranging from health and social care, travel and tourism, construction, engineering, the built environment. We've got a whole range of different things there. And then the other thing to add then is nationally in 2018-19, Welsh Government subsidised colleges. There's a small amount of subsidy the colleges could use to offer a junior apprenticeship type scheme for age 14-year-olds, so year 10 and year 11-year-olds, as a full-time alternative to a traditional academic route. So I'll talk about that a little bit more throughout the presentation and in the context of Swansea as well, and what we are offering as a city and within Gower College. So in terms of schools, to start with, schools will offer vocational options through 3 routes really. Firstly, school staff will deliver those vocational options themselves, deliver courses around about 3 hours a week, bit more, bit less maybe. The other thing is that schools can buy in college staff. So one of our schools, Ponte de Lais, does that. They buy in college staff to deliver on childcare and learning development, and that gets delivered that way. Or the third option, which is often quite popular actually within our schools, is for learners in year 10 and 11 during their GCSE years to go into the college to make best use of the expertise that is there, the facilities, the equipment that the college can offer. So Gower College currently does that. We have about 18 classes or courses going on with our schools. Different schools participate in that, and they'll pay the college to deliver that off-site. The school will put the learners on a minibus to there. And then as well as that, Coleg Cigar will offer options within one of their schools with a vocational skills centre, and Neath Port Talbot College have a construction centre in Llansamlet, which some of our schools access as well. There's a rich and diverse range of opportunities and options available to our learners, and over the last couple of years that has grown and strengthened. The relationships between the college and the schools have got stronger, and typically lots of options like construction, engineering, hair and beauty have grown and been very, very successful as well. Now, part of that success has been because of those strong relationships and networks, but as well as that, what we've had is additional funding to support this through European social funds through a project called Cynnydd. So locally, the Cynnydd project has supported learners who are more at risk of becoming NEET and given them access to courses which are on a recognised framework for Swansea in Gower College, but as well as that in Inspire training as well, the work-based learning provider that we have, and we have approximately 5 groups attending Inspire training because of that. So we're very pleased really with the way that the curriculum is being supported through vocational options in its standard way. Then in addition to that, I thought it might be useful to draw your attention to the junior apprenticeship model, which lots of local authorities are using. In Swansea, we're calling this the Junior Academy, and I wonder if I could just share my screen for a moment to show you. It's a little bit of a... Can you see that on the screen?
Yes.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay, so the Junior Academy is something that Gower College has done in partnership with some of the schools. This started in 2019-20, the academic year that was hugely disrupted because of COVID, but nevertheless, this still continued in its own way. So it's a full-time course. So when I say full-time, what I mean is 4 days a week. So 4 days out of the school week, with 1 day back in school for learners to access English, maths and science, and then any other core curriculum requirements that they have as well. So it's a completely vocational pathway, and at the moment there are 2 routes being offered, which is landscaping and eco-construction, as you can see there, and hair and beauty. So we currently have, at the moment, small numbers. We have about 13 learners on this course. We had 20 previously during 2019 to 20. All the learners that completed the course have successfully moved on to higher vocational studies or apprenticeships or into employment themselves itself. So there's a couple of photographs there just to see what goes on in the college, but they really do make the best use out of the facilities that the college has. It has on-site salons, it has access to the landscaping equipment that you can see there in the photographs. It has staff expertise, staff who have been through trades and have been involved in businesses within hair and beauty and within landscaping and horticulture, and so they are able to deliver in a very specific and unique way that perhaps the schools are unable to. There is a welfare and progress coordinator and a really strong partnership between the school and the college to make this work. And there's constant dialogue between both to ensure that everything is going well. So it's not a case where the learners from school are being sent to college and left there. It's a real partnership between the two. So typically, a typical week might look like this on the junior apprenticeship programme, where there is vocational sessions to complete the vocational qualification. And then throughout the year, there are work-related experiences, there are work readiness activities, and there are all sorts of support offered for learners to access and to be introduced to the world of work. And there are some very positive, I can pass this on so that you can see this. There's some very positive feedback there from some of our local schools as well. I'll stop sharing just to move on to the next, just a bit of a whistle stop of some of the things that are going on. The other thing just to draw your attention to is the Have a Go initiative, which is a very exciting project. The way I perhaps can describe this is like a big lending library of equipment and kit from different industries, different businesses that can be lent out to schools, and schools in Swansea make really good use of that kit. It's stored in Coleg Cigar. It's a big warehouse. There are things like transport simulator, plumbing kits, carpentry kits, digital technology kits. There's a mobile kitchen, all sorts of things that can be booked out, can be taken into the school, and a lesson can be delivered on vocational education in the classroom to inspire and to raise aspirations for learners to find out a little bit more about those industries. And a bit of good news within that is that as part of the Community Renewal Fund, there's an element of that bid that has gone in where we're going to replicate a little part of that within Swansea. So we'll have some kits that we can put together and we can distribute to schools so that they can borrow them, they can use them within a lessons framework. The learners can learn about vocational activities and be inspired perhaps to move on to the next stage and to do it that way. So we've got that with the Have a Go kit. And then as well as that, underpinning all of the activity that happens within Swansea, Careers Wales provides a very strong support for schools in terms of employer engagement, in terms of work readiness, in terms of activities where learners can be connected to the world of work and vocations that are happening throughout Wales. And even further than that, the new curriculum for Wales will have careers and the work-related experiences embedded into all the areas of learning. So we've got a very strong foundation to build on for vocational education. Of course, then at post-16, just very briefly, we've got Gower College is a very strong provider with very good results across all vocational areas at all different levels offered to our learners. And then we've got our sixth forms as well, who will all offer some element of vocational education, albeit a smaller course. So they'll offer subsidiary diplomas, which is the equivalent of 1 A level, whereas the college will offer extended diplomas and diplomas, which is the equivalent of 2 or 3 A levels. So there's different size packages that different institutions can offer in terms of vocational education. And then as well as that, Inspire Training can move learners on to traineeships before they take the step into apprenticeships. And they're well established within Swansea with a whole range of options, including business admin, construction, customer services, hair and beauty, etc. So we've got a very, I think Swansea's developed a very strong foundation for vocational education. We've got the willingness of schools and staff to move employability and vocational forward. look into the future, what we'd want to look at now is to really fine tune and look at those skills that are needed locally for the developing areas within City Deal, for example, and other areas that the Regional Learning Skills Partnership identify. And we want to make sure that we are on par with those skills needs, and that schools understand and know what they are and then how to deliver them as well. So that's the end of my presentation. I'm not sure if you've got any questions. Could answer those now.
Thank you, Dave. Can I ask members for questions, please? Councillor Mike Lewis.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, all very good. I'm glad that you're on the same journey as we hope to be on through our schools. I just wanted to know really that will all these vocational courses be filtered down to all pupils in all schools? Because no disrespect, and I do appreciate what you're doing, and it's a microcosm of what we hope to achieve with the Swansea schooling system. But 13 pupils is not a great deal of pupils on a vocational course for a city the size of Swansea. I just hope that you and you did say it in your summing up that you hope it was a foundation. You hope to increase the capacity you've got there, but even so, I feel it's got to come from the schools rather than from an institution like yourselves. Great for after schooling, they can go to college after they finish the school, but the foundation should be set between 14 and 16, because that's when we can actually well, I assume that the teaching staff can assess the potential or non-potential of different pupils vis-a-vis vocational or academic. So I hope that this is a way forward. It's going to take us some way to where we want to go. Yeah, and great news of what you are doing there, but I still feel it's not enough. We need to increase the momentum of our push towards vocational education. That's all I have to say. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mike. Dave, do you want to comment?
Yes, I was just going to comment really that there are over 20 groups of learners, so that would be 20 groups of about 10 each. So there's probably about 200 plus who are leaving the schools to do colleges on a 3-hour-a-week type basis. So those 13 learners account for the ones who are doing it full time, who have moved out of the school, and there'll be more in school as well that are being offered courses through school staff delivering vocationally. So yes, so it is a bit of a mixed picture, but we do hope to expand that a lot more and to look at exactly what courses are available and what skills are needed, and to address those skills as well in the future.
Thank you, Dave. I had the same concern when I looked at the numbers, exactly the same as Mike there, really. Can we move on to Councillor Jan Curtis, please?
Yeah, I had the same concerns, Mike, to be honest, but just to say this is something that I welcome, because not all children are academic. A lot of children drop out because they're not academic. So I think this is a welcome move and a move in the right direction. So grateful for all the work that's being done and hoping it'll expand a lot further. So thank you, David. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Jan. Councillor Lyndon Jones.
Great, thank you, Mike. I think really on the same points as the others have made. Really, it's a real good start. It's a blueprint, but we do need to expand this and maybe expand and widen the courses as well that people can take. But a lot of people aren't, academic, and they would really welcome this and would thrive. And I think that is something that we need to aspire to. But obviously, you've got to start somewhere, and you've certainly been doing that. And thank you, and a great presentation. But we do need to, have a plan where we can expand it.
Thank you, Lyndon. Councillor Sam Pritchard.
Oh, hello, Chair. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
There we go. Thank you. As ever, there's always one person with some technical difficulties, and so this meeting, I think it's me. Chair, I wasn't able to do it earlier, but can I declare an interest as I represent on behalf of the local authority. I'm a governor of Gower College, so can I declare an interest for that?
Lovely. Thank you, Sam.
The one thing I would say is it is encouraging, isn't it, that the fact that councillors previously have been talking about expanding and furthering the work does demonstrate a value in the work that is being done. And so I think the comments councillors have made I found to be really helpful. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Sam. Councillor Robert Smith.
Yes, thank you, Chair. And I'd echo a lot of what the committee members have said about, that this is a good place to start, and thank Dave for his report. Given that we're in a policy development committee, I think there's a few questions and a few issues that arise, looking forward, and Dave has alluded to some of them. You mentioned, Dave, that the vocational provision within schools, I'll specifically refer to travel and tourism, health and social care, child care and learner development, and sport and coaching. I don't expect the answer now, but it would be good to know, how many learners in Swansea are pursuing those courses 14 to 16, and plus any others that are being offered in schools, and how many of our schools are offering those courses. And you touched on that. Moving forward, then I think, we need to look at the skills needs moving forward. We also need to look at the qualifications landscape. I'm aware the Qualifications Wales have been involved in quite a few initiatives looking at the structure and the options for future qualifications. It would be good if we could have, I think, whether through the committee, an overview of what qualifications landscape is looking like now and what it could look like if Qualifications Wales proceed with a reform. And I think that'd be an interesting thing to inform future decisions. Likewise, we've got a fair idea of the providers that are out there. We've heard today about Gower College, about Inspire Training, and various other neighbour colleges and neighbouring authorities. But I think we need an overview of providers, and we need to look then at future provision, because I think what I'm getting from the committee is that there's a consensus that yes, we are glad that these things are in place now, but we want to develop this further and make sure that the provision here in Swansea addresses the future skills needs, the city deal and so on, the future economic needs. And I think if we do that with a view then to try and align and make sure that we've got the provision to meet those demands. So I think the various aspects of what I've asked for there, the skills needs assessment, review of qualifications, and an overview of existing provision, I think will help us, Chair.
I needed a technical difficulty as well then, Sam. Thank you very much, Robert. There's a lot of insight there, and it's touched upon a couple of areas that I noted down from the presentation I'll pick up on after as well. Helen, can we go to you next, please?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So Councillor Smith has already crystallised some of the observations I'd make, but essentially Dave, as a council officer in terms of his role as the strategic coordinator for skills in Swansea, has offered an additional example from Gower College around the Junior Academy. So that's on top of the learning and skills measure requirements for 14 to 16 and post 16. So that's an additional level. So I just want to reassure the committee really that it's not a very small number that we're talking about. We're talking about the requirement in each and every school in Swansea for the age bracket of 14 and 16 to offer certain options around vocational education, and then wider options at post 16. So I just want to reassure the committee that the junior academy, yes, it can be expanded. There was an intentional reason for starting small with that particular level of additionality because we wanted it to succeed. We have known of track record in other local authorities where they started big with the junior academy and it wasn't successful. So we were cautious to begin with because we wanted to succeed and we want to build and develop on that. But Councillor Smith is absolutely right, really, in coordinating this with the qualifications landscape. And I think Dave's role as an officer within the Education Directorate, looking really at the skills shortages, gaps, and also the emerging skills required, and tying that up to qualifications, absolutely key. So we're already hearing about manufacturing qualifications that weren't around last year, but they will be in the next 5 to 6 to 7 years. So it's absolutely key in terms of doing those sector reviews. And I don't know if Dave wants to talk a little bit more about what a sector review means, but nationally looking at the different sectors of business, hospitality, construction, all of this, that work is actually furnishing the qualification changes in Wales. And some of those reviews are carried on based on labour market analysis as well. So the work of the Regional Learning and Skills Partnership to understand really where the skills shortages are is really helpful, coupled then of course with the Skills and Talent Initiative, which will eventually change frameworks in terms of what's offered by colleges in and around the city of Swansea in terms of the city deal. That'll be helpful and influential really in widening and broadening the spread of interesting courses and really relevant and purposeful in terms of the link between prosperity and education. It'll absolutely help to cement that. So it's quite exciting what we've got. We've got a good foundation to build on, as Dave described, and it's exciting work to look forward to.
That's excellent. Thank you, Helen. I wrote a few notes down as Dave was speaking and others. And there is a sense of, I think, frustration, really. Councillor Mike Lewis, I think, a long time, and others, of course, but a sense of frustration about the size and scale of the offer and how long it's going to take from this point to bed it down. So with the £30 million of the city deal, the skills and talent focus, regional skills partnership and the Swansea skills focus, are we on track then to coordinate these different streams into a powerful local offer that makes sense to every school in Swansea? But one of the impressions that I got when I looked at the report, sorry Dave, I'm not being critical, but this is my limited mental capacity, was it seems like it's a bit like catching rain. You know, there's lots of things coming down, and there's some ambiguity perhaps about the legal position in Wales as well. So can you say a little bit about that, Dave, please?
Yes, we are at a point where we are waiting, you know, for further information with regards to skills. So I think we're at a point where we're looking at this grand foundation of vocational education that's been delivered within the schools. But yeah, moving forward, that does need to be tightened up and being looked at a bit more clear. So I think, as Helen just mentioned there, with the Skills and Talent Initiative as part of the City Deal project, a big piece of work the Regional Learning and Skills Partnership are currently undertaking, which we hope to have completed by about spring of next year, will be a clear identification of where those skills gaps are. And once we know where the skills gaps are, then we can move forward to look at how we actually fill the gaps within our local curriculum, and we look across Swansea to find out where they are. So we're at a point where we're fine-tuning things, I think, as well as that current development within Curriculum for Wales, which haven't actually materialised yet, and also qualifications for the future, which is the piece of work that Qualifications Wales are doing to eventually come up with the new framework of qualifications to be offered as a result of the investigations that they're doing into different sectors and part of the sector reviews. We know at the moment there's going to be, although it's not currently available, but there will be a qualification for 16-year-olds for the built environment, for digital technology and for engineering and manufacturing. That's already been announced by Qualifications Wales. So what we seek to do as a local authority is to ensure that our schools are ready to deliver those qualifications, as we suspect that they will be part of the skills analysis that Regional Learning Skills Partnership will come up with within the Skills and Talent Initiative. So it does feel like a long process, and it does feel sometimes like we're always waiting for some sort of outcome. But I've got to say, within the last couple of months in particular, it feels as if things are gathering a little bit more momentum. The Skills and Talent Initiative has now been approved by National and Welsh Government, so we'll hope to move forward a little bit at a faster pace, I would suspect, over the next 12-18 months or so.
Yeah, that's great to hear. That's very heartening from my point of view. It really is. I think a few years ago, Dave, we in these committee meetings, we had passionate discussion about these matters. And there was an interest, I think, and I've heard this recently as well in a recent conversation with a cabinet member, as the perspective of vocational education changed over time. And is there almost an academic snobbery when we come to vocational education versus what we might describe as academic excellence? Because when I was younger, jobs like being an accountant or a solicitor, they were seen as vocational, and then they become sort of more professionalized over time. So I just wonder whether is this is vocation frowned upon by our educators in any kind of sense as a poor relation, because of equal status, It used to be like that when I was in Penland Comprehensive School in the 1970s, certainly was. And because that would be a barrier for us as we go forward, perhaps, to achieve parity. My pathway is my pathway, your pathway is your pathway. We're both on the right track for us. I just had to ask that question.
Yeah, I mean, I think...
Oh, Dave, sorry.
Oh, sorry. Sorry. Yeah, I think there is an ongoing, looking forward to achieve that parity. But I think the weight of feeling from the local authority, from groups like Regional Learning Skills Partnership, from Welsh Government itself, from local councils like yourselves, and from Careers Wales and other organisations, does carry that momentum that vocational education is and has an equal parity with or has parity with academic qualifications as well. There is more work to be done in terms of parents' perceptions and some of the teachers' perceptions as well. But hopefully together we can raise those aspirations and work towards vocational education being something that all learners can inspire to as well.
That's really helpful. I know in my sort of day job, the Solicitors Regulating Authority have changed the way you become qualified in law, and that's opened up lots of exciting routes. And we could get young people on those routes at the age of 14 and see them build to the future. It's an interesting, lots of different changes in this context. Robert Smith, please.
Yeah, thanks. And I mean, I really appreciate the work that's gone into preparing this report, David. What I would say, you mentioned there the work of Qualifications Wales are doing. I think it would be worthwhile having some kind of précis of that at a future PDC meeting if the committee are happy with that. Because there is a lot to be. I know you were aware of it, David. It's obvious, but I mean, let's for the members of the committee and myself to be aware of it.
And that would perhaps go a long way to achieving this parity, perhaps, I imagine. Can I ask Helen, please?
Thanks, Chair. Yes, on the parity front, there's definitely a cultural shift towards looking at the new curriculum as a vehicle to ensure that children and young people choose how and what they learn, and that the curriculum is as personal to them as possible. and the pursuit really of occupations and destinies that appeal to them is absolutely at the heart of the new curriculum. So that's really important, because it's not just about academic prowess and academic pathways and academic success. It's very much about the pursuit of destinies that really are in tune with the child's particular interests, desires, you know, their aptitude and their enjoyment really of learning a particular skill or a particular context of learning. So that's really refreshing, and that's unique to Wales and the curriculum for Wales, that there's a choice, and that choice can only then increase engagement in learning, and engagement in learning will help support an ambition for lifelong learning, which is something as a council we're keen to pursue and promote.
Excellent, thank you, Helen. Lyndon?
Great, thank you. Under the section, you've got Careers Wales operates in all secondary schools to deliver employer engagement. What is that sort of level of engagement throughout? Because is it similar in each of the secondary schools, or are some better than others, and therefore can possibly some of the schools learn from those schools? Because there's always a learning curve in everything really, and so just wondered what that was. And outside the junior academy, how many pupils 14 to 16 are actually taking up these vocational opportunities? Because we could be missing out on some who would be interested in taking them up, and are they really made aware of them? Thanks, David. Yeah, and yeah.
So shall I respond to that? Yes.
Yes,
so yeah, Careers Wales does work over all our secondary schools. You know, 14 secondary schools and settings. So we got the PRU as well. Inevitably, some schools will have a stronger curriculum perhaps than others. We've got network groups within the local authorities where that good practice can be shared between schools, and that happens as well, which is very, very good. Obviously, during COVID, the landscape has completely changed in terms of visiting speakers into schools. But in terms of employer engagement, I think that's an element that perhaps could include small work experience opportunities. It could include site visits. It could include employers visiting schools. It could include CV building, mock interviews. It's a whole range of different activities that employers are able to do with schools that Careers Wales can act as a bit of the conduit for, or can put together, having the links and the opportunities there. So it does happen within schools, and we've got networks to share good experience good practice between schools to allow that to happen. We do have a lot of learners. There are a lot of courses that go on outside of the junior academy. So even just within Gower College, there are about 24, 25 classes of roughly between 10 and 15 in each class. And those are just the learners who leave school, who go off to do vocational courses outside of their school environment. Within the school environment, then, there will be more classes again. So I don't know, I haven't got an exact figure, unfortunately, Councillor, but there would be in the region of hundreds and hundreds of learners who are participating in vocational courses across the school day. And in addition to that, there are also lots and lots of courses, and so I haven't got an exact figure here, of courses involving employability skills, work skills. There's a BTEC qualification that has employability as an element of it in terms of the PSC that schools deliver. So there are a whole range of ways in which schools access and deliver vocational education, but quite rightly so, as everyone said, that does and can be in the future much closely fine-tuned into the skills needs of the local area through the work of the RLSP.
Great, thank you very much for that. We obviously will have, I'm sure, young people who've done really well in Swansea, and is there an opportunity to possibly use those to come back into school as peer pressure, you know, because if they see a young person who's done well and is only a few years older than some of the people in the class, gosh, that's a real example, because it shows that, well, that could be me. And nothing better to inspire people than that, really, than somebody who's probably been around the block about 10 times. And even though he's doing, or she is doing very, very well, I think those young people could inspire some of our children in the schools.
I just jump in and to say to Lyndon, I think that's right, Lyndon, and the idea of the learning champions that we've spoken about consistently is about that. It's about getting people from local communities to step into the school environment and to plant seeds in young people's minds to say, look, I used to sit where you were sitting and I did well in whatever field that I did. I think it's a powerful life-shaping influence, really.
I gotta come in there because I'm smiling to myself because I've heard of quite a few examples where boys in particular did achieve something unexpected in some cases, and they suddenly had a phone call from a head teacher, and it was the only positive things they heard throughout school from this about them, and they were asked to come back and talk to other pupils, and I thought they were delighted about it, that they were being recognised in that way.
Brilliant, brilliant. I remember at Pentrhaven School when one of my very, very old children was in the first year, many years ago, when they asked Martin Morgan, one of Swansea's very successful business people, of course, to come and present the awards. And the first thing Martin was, he didn't stop laughing for the first 3 minutes because he couldn't believe the head teacher had invited him up onto the stage to address the school. Because as he said, he was a blinking nuisance when he was there. You know, as Jan said earlier, school isn't for every, you know, academic education isn't for everybody, you know, and that's why this is so exciting, isn't it? Helen, can I go back to you?
Yes, thank you. I think just an observation from me in terms of speaking to schools and Councillor Lyndon Jones mentioning people coming back, really, ex-pupils coming back into school, and that's quite prevalent in Swansea. I've spoken to a lot of heads recently, and that does happen a lot. So that's really encouraging, isn't it? It's a very powerful tool. But I think the observation I'd like to focus on really is that vocational learning and vocational education doesn't really start when you're 14. It starts at a much younger age, and I think there are really good examples of foundations being planted really in the primary sector, where schools are looking at entrepreneurial skills, they're looking at employability skills, they're looking at the world of work, and even at the age of 3 in the foundation phase in Swansea, you can actually not just go into the play corner, but you're actually going into a veterinary surgery, a travel agent. You're actually being placed in the world of work at a very young age, and that is exciting, it's fun, it's interesting. And that kind of vocational world of work lens is being commonly spread across all primary schools. And I was listening recently to a school describing how they'd engaged with a local supermarket manager to actually ask their year 6 children and to engage with him, to ask him how to refine their business plan for the little business they'd set up in their classroom. So that's fantastic, isn't it? And that kind of practice is actually being spread. We use that as an example with our primary head teachers recently. And that's fantastic. That's so ambitious, so aspirational for children. And we've got to remember that some of these ambitions are planted very early on, and we should try and perpetuate that, really, not start thinking about it at 14.
Excellent. Thank you, Helen. Mike Lewis.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Yeah, it's just a thought. Would it be possible for David to come back to this committee in, say, 6 months and give us an update on the progress of vocational education within our schools, and possibly share some statistics that he didn't give us earlier on because he didn't know them off the top of his head, but he could probably prepare something so we would actually know how far along the journey we are, because back in my mind, yes, we've got the all this money to spend at the moment, but it's not going to last forever. We Swansea needs to prepare our children to take up vocational education for certain areas that will be needed and has been discussed in this meeting. But we need to start doing it now, not 2 years down the line. So, I'm not frustrated, but almost frustrated at the length of time it seems to everything seems to be taken to be put into place. I wanted to put it into place properly, and yes, that has to take some time, but I still feel that we should be pushing ahead with this as quickly as possible. That's all I have to say, Chair. Thank you very much. Cheers.
Thank you, Mike. I think it's a very good suggestion, and to have an update so that we can keep, as was mentioned earlier, to keep that momentum. It's such an exciting time to see these different strands coming together, and now is not the time to see us, any kind of a backsliding, if you like. So that's exciting. I really like Helen's focus on the primary, planting the seeds. And I think if we pause and reflect on our own childhoods, very often you have memories from your early childhood that are planted, the early experience that are planted, seeds grow and develop over time, and then you find yourself at 30, 40 or 50 thinking, how the heck did I get here? And then you can rewind to that early experience. So it's very important, I think. Indeed, on the statistics side of things, one thing that occurred to me, I said it more than once, I know, but if we're looking in Swansea at good general education achievement, A to C grades at GCSE, and if we've got 60% of children and young people get in there, which is good, could the focus be on the 30% who don't get there? So in alternate routes for those 30%, so we can, and this is of course in the NEET context as well, so we can be as confident as we can be that everyone's got a pathway, and I think I've had some very heartening conversations about tweaking and eking out that educational potential, which is fantastic. But alongside vocational and alongside physical literacy, sport and health, keeping people on track, you've got 3 powerful strands there. So hopefully we can see more and more young people keeping on whatever the path of success is for them, but keeping on track. That's the key thing. But if we could tie it to those kinds of numbers, that would be interesting. Do you think, committee?
Totally agree. Really exciting way forward. Yeah.
Thank you. I know, Dave, we picked up in the report, Dave, the 13 figure. Now, we know from what you said, we'd be probably looking at closer to 250 to 300 young people engaged with different vocational activities. So that's a big body of young people who are positively engaged. So getting tighter concentration on the figures would be really helpful. Thank you. Jan, did you want to speak? Jan, sorry. No.
Excuse me, no, I didn't put my hand up, Mike. Sorry.
All right. Okay, lovely. Thank you. Well, that was very full. That was very interesting, and lots of excitement there. I think, Dave, it's great to see, and we're going to keep picking on you now, Dave. Unfortunately, as Councillor Lewis said, we will come back to this, and we very much, I think I can say this on behalf of everybody, very much looking forward to seeing this progress, and very much seeing the links with other PDCs as well, because other PDCs have looked at, for example, the £30 million regional approach. Well, it's dramatic and exciting, not just for us in Swansea, but for our partners in neighbouring authorities too. So that partnership and collaboration holds powerful potential. David?
Yeah, so I'm just going to come in as well. It is an exciting time where there's new innovative and different ways of doing things as well that our young people need to be engaged with. So things like, the construction industry has completely changed with the use of sending drones up to the top of buildings, and so you don't need to put scaffolding up anymore. And there's all this new way of doing green technology, smart homes. So what we want to do, and part of the Skills and Talent Initiative, is to investigate these new and innovative and exciting ways of work that perhaps we are not used to, and from what we've gone through, and what our young people and our children within our schools can now engage with and be excited about. And I think as well, it's like another element of how vocational education can have more of a parity alongside academic with some of the innovation and some of the digital technologies that are being used, which is now quite, you know, for quite highly skilled people to use within industry. So yeah, it's exciting times and things are changing very rapidly. So I'd be pleased to come back in six months time or so to give an update on where we are with things.
That's excellent. Thank you, Dave. The last thing that occurs to me as you speak there is that when in a previous committee we went through what skills are required, what are these emerging skills as we rebuild the city and the region. And I asked a friend of mine, I think this would have been 3 years ago, who was very involved in Swansea business, and what for him the emerging skill, what are the skills, what do people need? So he went off, he belongs to different associations. And he came back and he said, what I'm going to tell you is going to be surprising, I think, Mike, because I was thinking all digital technology and digital next and green energy. And he said about those old skills we would have all had, certainly the older people in the room, when we were little at school. And that was about politeness. It was about courtesy. It was about being able to express yourself well in writing. It was about basic arithmetic. I found that quite surprising, you know, so that's a big area. No matter what your job, you're going to have to communicate well in writing and orally. And that linked to a friend of mine who's a senior solicitor with a firm in Swansea. I asked him about his perspective, and he said that he has to retrain people to communicate in quite a basic manner when he takes them on for legal roles very often. And I questioned him and asked him what he meant. And he said politeness, courtesy, answering the phone, communicating clearly via email. And that's in a professional context as well. So this was really interesting. Thank you very much, Dave. We really appreciate your input. Any other questions for Dave before we finish on this part?
Yeah, Chair.
Cyril, go on, Cyril.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I'd like to thank you and the Cabinet member and the members, obviously, for inviting me this afternoon. It is very exciting times listening to David. Thank you for a well-presented report. But I'd also like to thank Helen. She went right back to grassroots. Don't forget our primary children. Thank you, Helen. It was I thought that was really well said, because we got to get them nurtured, as Mike will say, and Rob, we got to get them nurtured from a very young age. And that's when you get them. And once they're hooked, you've got them for life. Thank you for inviting me, Mike.
Thank you, Cyril. Our pleasure. Okay, so if we go back to the agenda, that was the positional statement on vocational education in Swansea. So we move on to agenda item number 5, and that's the work plan for the year ahead, for the remainder of the year ahead. And we don't know when the year is going to end because we've got an election, of course. So we've got at the moment, and of course none of these are etched in stone, but we've got the 19th of January, sport, health and physical literacy provision and outdoor education, and then 16th of February, adverse childhood experiences. But following earlier discussion, do we want to add something in there about the qualification Wales? Do we want to add that into the work plan there? Or is this something that we could wait for an update from Dave on in future, in the next 6 months? Helen, one way or the other, do you think?
I think if you're going to invite Dave back, I think bringing back the statistics and the qualifications update at the same time is probably good use of time.
Right, there we are. Good. So, well, have we got any comments on the work plan? Are we reasonably content how things are looking? Yeah, nodding heads. Even a smiling face or two there. Well, that then is our agenda complete. And I think on that note, I would wish you all a happy and healthy Christmas and New Year break. And don't do anything daft. Don't attend any meetings or any gatherings or any coffee and tea mornings or anything not supposed to. Don't do that.
Cancelled all hours, Mike, so we're doing the right thing down this end.
Well, on Friday, we cancelled our works do, but we're having an online one, which will be quite interesting. I don't think people will be getting up to what they normally get up to online, but who knows? We'll see. Councillor Robert Smith?
Yeah, I just want to echo your thank the committee for its support during the last 6 months when I've been the cabinet member. and also before that when I was chair of the PDC. I really appreciate the support you gave me, and well, we worked together, so thank you.
Thank you, Robert. I echo that as well. I mean, I've never been a PDC chair before, and I found it very interesting. With Robert's support, Helen's support, and the team, it's been a really enjoyable experience in the year to date. So on that note, I'll call an end to the meeting. Thank you very much indeed for your enthusiasm, and have a happy and healthy New Year. Thank you, everyone.
Merry
Bye-bye
Christmas,
now.
everybody. Merry Christmas.
Thanks, Gareth. Bye-bye now.
No.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.